Well, welcome to Training Tuesday, everyone. My name is Heidi Reese, and I am the trainings program manager here at Dayton Superior. Just want to go over a few things before we get started. Just want to remind everyone that you are muted so that the presentation can be conducted without any outside disturbances, but I want you to feel free to go ahead and ask any questions that you may have throughout the presentation. And at the end, we'll have a short question and answer. You can ask questions through the Zoom functionality of chat and/or the question and answer area. Also, as a reminder, each of our webinars are recorded and placed on the Dayton Superior YouTube channel, as well as our DaytonSuperior.com website. So just search for Training Tuesdays and you can see all the links to the past webinars. All right, so this presentation that we're about to go over is intended for training purposes only. So what does that mean? When you utilize the products that we talk about, be sure to go to DaytonSuperior.com and get any technical specifications or safety specifications for the products that we mention. So who is Dayton Superior? We are the leading provider of engineered solutions for the concrete construction industry. We handle accessories, chemicals, forming. We provide you with engineering services, whether it is just a certain kind of numbers, technical questions, or if you need a PE stamp, we can provide that as well for certain products. And we do training. We stand behind our products, and this is one of the trainings that we do. We do them every Tuesday on different topics for the industry. So a little bit about the accessories and chemicals and forming in case you are not aware of the certain products that we have. Simon's Forming and Shoring, concrete repair and restoration, bridge deck, rebar splicing, precast and tilt-up construction. So we also have, like I said, Simon's Forming and Shoring. I want you to know that it's very adaptable, strong, and saves labor costs for the needs for your needs on your projects. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about forming. And with that, it's not necessarily just all wall forming. We're calling it formwork adaptations. We're going to be discussing the specialty areas of forming using different accessories to get what you need accomplished for your project. And with us today is none other than Mr. Chuck Hoke, who is our awesome subject matter expert. And he really is for both customers as well as people like me inside of Dayton Superior and Simons. He is the one shop guy. We should put him on the Who is Dayton Superior slide, right? Oh, he's getting all blush worthy over here.
I know.
But no, he really is. He is the training behind that, and I help him out with it. He knows so much, and he is here to share us with everything that he knows for formwork adaptations. Do you like that, Chuck? I cut it short because you're blushing.
Okay,
So have at it.
thank you, Heidi. So today we're going to talk a little bit about formwork adaptations, and we're going to talk about, when we do for concrete formwork, there is nothing that is consistent in the concrete formwork, except for the concrete is flowable, obviously. Typically, it's basically mixed and sent to the site here in a fluid state, and then will cure into the shape that you have set your forms into. So that's one of the consistent things that we will see. We have actually everything that we deal with in Dayton Superior here, especially with concrete formwork, has involves around a factor of safety or safe working load. For example, all concrete formwork has to have a 2-to-1 safe working load. And that is set forth by ACI 347, which is the standard building codes here in the US. So you've all seen this slide a couple of times here. The fight forming, sticks and boards. Yes, we follow ACI 347, 2-to-1 safety factor, snap ties, tie wedges, John system. Forms that are typically built on site. Yeah, they all typically come back with two-sided forming. So you've got one on the left side, one on the right side. Well, we're gonna step out of that platform and just look at what happens when things have to change and you only have forming on one's concrete form, actual form itself on one side. So you have your ties typically spaced about 2 foot on center. Uh, Setting on a sill plate, you've got studs, whalers, and obviously the tie and the holding mechanism.
You talked about studs. Were you on site?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Job build forms, typically, you're limited with wood forms, typically to 600 pounds per square foot. That means basically you're looking at a top pour rate of about 4 foot an hour. That's the maximum you can go without having your plywood start to pillow on you. So usually you're seeing that this system is typically done with like house foundations, smaller walls, etc. And they all use snap ties, basically hex-headed snap ties, one-sided, standard duty, heavy duty. We've covered these a bunch of times before. These are available in different wall thicknesses, and you can get them in a long end or a short end, depending if you're using a single whaler system or if you're using a whaler strongback or a whaler stud system. Determine the end here is relatively simple. You basically have your plywood, your stud or your whaler, and then the strong back system here. Add those dimensions all up to help get the ends that are required for the snap tie. The snap tie uses a tie wedge, and everything we're going to talk a little bit about this product here later on, because we can actually accommodate specialty set forming with this single Omni wedge. The John forming system, light duty system out there. Typically on the forming that we're going to be talking about today, you won't see a lot of this. This is a light duty, typically 7 foot or less, single whaler, so you're not talking a whole lot of pressure on the forms, very few nails, goes together really quick and easy, but it is still typically a light duty system. It says here how to use a John forming system. Well, this goes with any snap tie system. Basically, almost any wood forming system, you're going to want to stack drill your plywood. That's a method of where you stack all your plywood in one pile and then just drill holes in a pattern that is consistent so that you can run your plywood vertical or turn it 90 degrees and have it the same hole pattern throughout your form system. You're going to put the forms together, especially in a wood form, wrap them around the corners, tie them off together. A lot of guys may use this corner lock bracket. Myself, I've never used the corner lock bracket. Most of the forming that I've done in the past has always been where I run the 2x4 whalers across each other and then put a vertical piece in between on the outside of the joint and nail it in place, and that just locks the corner in. There are other ways you can do this, accommodate locking the corner in by just dropping a 6 penny nail or 16 penny nail down through the 2x4s into each other to basically tie them together. And you're going to use strongbacks and turnbuckles. And even with the forming systems that we're going to be showing you here, this is the one slide that is going to play a huge part, because you are going to have to, a lot of times, kick back the form work. And I don't want to say brace the form work, but you're going to use turnbuckles to align it. And then you are going to use a brace to actually support the form work from that concrete pressure. So when we're talking about a lot of forming here, we're going to talk about steel ply as the next level. You're talking steel ply, typically a panelized system. Steel frame, wood plywood face, 1/2 inch plywood. Usually an HDO or an MDO. Usually you see HDO because it gives you a little bit better surface and a little bit use better use of the form. We have everything from 1 inch all the way up to a 30-inch filler. And so these are typically available 1 inch, inch and a half, and 2 inch available in steel, all steel. Everything else from 4 inches all the way up to 30 inches is steel framed, plywood faced form. Simple components to actually make the attachments. We've got wedge bolts here. You're going to put one horizontally through the form and then one vertically to lock everything in. You're going to also use the same wedge bolt to tie in your ties. You've got a one-piece whaler clamp. One-piece whaler clamp is basically for a truing of the form, so to make sure it's nice and straight. It is not a structural member. It's basically just putting a whaler up on top, and that is to help align the form horizontally. So to make sure that your forms are nice and straight, that is the whole purpose of the one-piece whaler clamp. Turnbuckles typically help you plumb the system within the form. Not recommended for bracing. So that's why I said before, we would use the turnbuckle to align the forms and then a brace to actually brace the form against whatever platform we're working off of. And ties for steel ply, you've got the S-panel tie and a flat tie. So these are probably the two most common. Typically, the residential tie will be the flat tie, and the loop tie is typically more of a commercial tie with a 1-inch break back. And you can also get that with cones and water seal. Now, the one thing I love about concrete formwork is there's never two jobs that are exactly the same. So we have a product here that falls into that category of, well, what do you do if? So let's say you are going to pour a large foundation slab, 4 foot or 5 foot thick of concrete, 200 foot by 300 foot, a lot of concrete going into it. You're going to put forms up around the perimeter that's going to actually define the shape of the form. But because of the size of the slab, you cannot pour it monolithically. What happens is you are going to generate so much heat from the hydration in the concrete that you will actually cook or boil the bleed water in that concrete to cause the top of the panels or top of the slab to actually crack. Even if you put curing compound on it, you will cause it to crack or cook from the inside. So you want to maintain a reasonable temperature. So a lot of guys, what they will do is they will segmentalize the slab and they will basically checkerboard it. So this material here, the A10 metal rib, is a great product for that. I'm going to show you how to use it here in a second. It can also be used for if you're pouring a concrete wall and you want to basically you're going to have a continuation wall going on afterwards, or you're going to be, let's say, forming against a what they call a bathtub in a foundation package where they're going to be putting drainage in behind it. Well, a lot of times there's not enough room to get a person back in there to strip your forms. So this forming system basically allows you to leave it in place. It is a great system because of the ribs that are on here and the sheeting of the material, because of the corrugations on the material, that the concrete will bleed through and give you an extremely rough surface. And what that does is increase the bond area for your next pour, if you are so using it as a next pour. So a lot of guys like this system here, especially when they checkerboard the large foundation packages that I talked about, where they're going to come in with a floor slab. As you can see, you're not getting a whole lot of deflection. Yes, there will be some deflection, but not as much as you'd think. So this material here with the rib and the corrugations typically creates a great forming. You can typically pour this at 4 or 5 foot an hour, depending. So usually when you're pouring those large foundation packages, the pour rates are relatively low. You're only talking a foot, 2 foot an hour. So you don't typically go and have a lot of pressure on this product. So your deflection should be fairly low with this product line. Now, as you can see, here's how the system is put in place here. These are some photos of where it's been segmentalized, and the contractor is going to pour a concrete slab. What he'll do is he will come back and remove these stakes, or sometimes if they use rebar, they'll leave them in place and just pour right over the top of them. On the bottom picture in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a picture where they're going to actually pour on, after they pour the wall, they're going to actually strip where they have the steel ply facing the forms, and then remove that section to come back and pour another wall, which will be fairly thin. Now you can use either steel stakes, which is probably the most preferred method because you can actually pull them out of the form a heck of a lot easier than rebar because of the deformations. So the steel stakes, the G27 nail stake, 3/4, 7/8, or 1 inch, can either be with holes or without holes. Doesn't matter. You don't need the holes for any particular operation or mandatory operation with the system. You'll see that a lot of guys will use rebar for their system, and they will actually make a tie connection. So all those ties that we talked about earlier, the snap tie, the loop tie from Simon's Forms. We do not do a tie with a flat tie. We primarily have this system here set up with either loops or snap tie ends. So we make what we have a tie that will actually make that accommodation. This is a loop tie. I'll show it to you here in a couple of minutes. It basically wraps around, goes through the ribbing, wraps around the stake, whether it be a stake or a piece of rebar. You can then it has a steel plate on it that you can tighten down to basically hold it in place. And you can make the pour that way, and that'll give you a defined wall thickness. Installation, you'll see that the ribs typically require a 4 to 8 inch minimum overlap with state of the form sheets. There's 2 rib minimum lap between, especially when you're stacking sheets on top, going on top of each other. And usually you can tie wire around the rib to basically, and a bracing is recommended. So wherever your rib is located within the A110, you can actually feed a piece of tie wire through that, wrap around, and it's just going to give your form system, your form wall, the form panel, a little more rigidity. You're going to brace these sheets especially wherever your lap is going to be with the sheet. You're going to want to put an extra brace up there, whether it be just a 2x8 or 2x6 on flat, and then just use a kicker off of it to actually support it. But typically you're going to have bracing with wire staples. A lot of guys will use roofing nails or something that has a large head on it. They'll notch the ribs just to make the 90-degree turn. So basically what they'll do is they'll cut a little slot, they'll cut the slot right in the rib and then bend the form right around the corners to get themselves a really nice tight corner. So you can actually do different functions with this and not have to actually cut the sheet right at the whole sheet at an angle to come back in and have another sheet butt into it. You can wrap it around the corners. And you can cut this product here either with tin snips. A lot of guys will use a little grinder with a cutoff wheel on it and just basically hit it real quick to cut it. It is a very light material, very easy to basically to conform to what shapes you're looking for. Ties here to accommodate it, as I mentioned earlier, the tie that we showed here with wrapping around the piece of rebar is an A46 snap tie with a loop. This one actually comes into wraps around. You can get it with a snap tie end, or you can get it with a loop tie end. The loop tie obviously will accommodate Simon steel ply on the other side, snap tie end, obviously wood forms. So you have a couple of different variations on which system you can go with. Now there's also, you can use a combo tie. Combo ties were very popular here, been coming up here for different uses for one-sided wall forming. You see them both either with a snap tie end or a loop tie end, and they use coil rod on the other side, especially on these large concrete pour slabs like we talked about earlier, where they're going to checkerboard the slab. You don't want to have a 30-foot long tie. Guys will take coil rod and actually accommodate that tie. They'll make that tie up in the field using coil rod, couplers, etc. And when they do that, they can actually use the AB6R rebar hook, which will actually thread through the stay form around the piece of reinforcement, whether it be a nail stake or rebar. You turn it 90 degrees, it locks itself in and around the system, and you have the threaded connection on the other end to actually attach through coil rods so you can actually accommodate your ties. Now, resources that are available. One of the things Heidi alluded to earlier is all the perks that you get dealing with Dayton Superior.
That's right.
So when we're talking resources from Dayton Superior, we got application guides, we got technical data and safety sheets available. We got brochures, success stories, sales flyers, who to contact, especially if you go to DaytonSuperior.com. You'll actually come up with all of the systems all of the information that we have all right there. And that's where you're going to be able to find information about, how to get a hold of Heidi and myself, et cetera, especially for training. So through, the training at DaytonSuperior.com, that email will come directly to myself and to Heidi. And we work together. I don't think there's a day in the week we don't talk to each other pretty much. So this system here, you can get a hold of Heidi and myself at training at DaytonSuperior.com. You don't have to worry about any of the other. That primarily comes just to Heidi and I. You can also scan the QR code here to get any additional training information request forms brought up to you. If you see something that you want to get a little more notice with, or get more comfortable with that product line, feel free to give us a call. We can actually accommodate classes, everything from an hour long or half hour long, all the way up to a day and a half. Are some of our longer classes, and we would get into a hands-on situation, etc. So quite in depth. So, and with that, I am going to turn it over to Heidi.
Thanks, Chuck. So I want to let you guys all know that we have a Superior Deal of the Month occurring right now. Hope you got your email already. And we have talked about two of the products that are on special pricing for the Superior deal, the 8110 metal rib and select sizes of the G27 steel stakes. And that is for the stay in place formwork for concrete. And Chuck trained you on that for this presentation. In addition, we have the P12G welded wire that's typically handled for precast and insulated wall panels. We're going to be talking about that next week when we go through the, what are we talking about? Parking. So I was going to say precast, but it is. It has a lot of precast elements in there. And this deal is only for the month of August. So contact your sales representative for details on that special pricing. Chuck had mentioned before, we have that contact form on there. You simply find it and find your state, and you can get straight to the person, whether it be your technical service, your sales representative, or customer service. So at this time, I want to open it for questions. Does anybody have any questions on what we've talked about today? And while you guys are thinking and typing, you can ask those questions through Zoom functionality, through the chat or Q&A. Just want to remind you that all of these are recorded and we'll have this placed out on our YouTube channels, as well as a link on DaytonSuperior.com. And we will have that later on, probably about 4-ish. We have a question, is there a Simply quoting video? There's not a quoting video, but.
No, there's no Simply quoting video. Typically, we have the application guide, which actually shows how to build Simply gang forms, and it'll show the number of accessories and components within the drawing itself. The drawings are set up based on panel dimensions, everything ranging from 3 foot wide to, I believe, 15 or 18 feet wide in the panel. And they get into some various heights of, I think, up to 20 foot altogether in the application guide.
Thank you, Chuck. And I'm actually sending you, Mr. Hess, the application guide that's on the web right now. So you can check that out. And here it comes. Is any other questions out there? All right, well, if you happen to have any or you think of them later on, just do that QR code. Here, I'll go back to it and you can ask Chuck or myself, mainly Chuck, the question and he can get those answers to you. And with that, guys, come next Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, I'll have the sign-up sheet ready for you. And I want everyone to have a great Tuesday. Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody.
Bye now.